Okay, the weekend of September 12th, 2020. It was one of the craziest and most memorable weekends of my life. So I'll be starting from the beginning. I have a friend named Boris who had a terrible laptop for too long. Only recently, a few weeks ago, was he able to muster enough money from the depths of his long and forgotten credit card, which has had something like $600 on it, to buy a whole PC. So we make plans one week to go to Akihabara, which is basically the tech center of Japan, to buy all the parts for his computer, because buying all of the parts separately is cheaper than buying a pre-built one, especially when you buy the PC secondhand. The weekend of September 12th arrives, and I go to Boris's house. Then another friend who wanted to join us arrives a few minutes later. We'll call him Joe because he didn't want me to say his name in this video. We head out about 15 minutes later, and Boris and Joe take their bikes, and I start walking to the train. Joe and Boris stop at a convenience store to redeem the money on his credit card. Only problem was, Boris told me he might not be able to remember the correct code on his card. So I go to the train and went to Akihabara, and Boris and Joe were almost 30 minutes away, so I went to Starbucks to wait. Boris and Joe arrive with good news that Boris remembered the code on his card and now has over $900 to spend, which was way more than I was expecting. We walk over to the second-hand shop that Boris called the black market, both because the prices were super low and the walls were painted black. Boris needed a lot of parts, basically all of them, except for the motherboard and RAM. We bought those the weekend before that. In the black market, we bought the processor and power supply, and Joe needed some new RAM, so he got that. Then we walk around some more and go to the second-hand store and find the most amazing deal for a case ever. $30 for a white metal case with acrylic side panels, 2 fans, and cable management holes. This was one of the craziest parts of the story. So we bought it immediately, but the bag that the storekeeper put it in just barely fit over the case, so we couldn't hold it with one hand, and it was pretty heavy, so we had to take turns holding it throughout the rest of the day. Back in the black market, Boris saw a good deal for a graphics card. I'm pretty sure we bought it before we got the case. Anyways, we thought we were running out of money at this point, so we made it our mission to find the cheapest 1 terabyte hard drive that we could. We walk into another secondhand store that Boris found and find the sketchiest deal for a $20 1 terabyte Western Digital Green, the slowest kind hard drive. We don't think it's gonna work, but we pop it in his backpack anyways. They even gave us a 1-week warranty that said if it didn't work upon start, we could return it and get all of our money back. Now all we need is a monitor. We have about $180 left worth of yen, and it's getting late and cloudy. We start walking around to any store that has monitors in it, and we finally find a store that we settle on, and we find a monitor. It says it's 144 hertz, 5 milliseconds response time, and Boris goes to buy it while I wait outside and with the case and parts. It took a really long time to get the monitor all wrapped up in bubble wrap, and it had a little plastic handle on it that was quite comfortable actually. But the problem was that we only bought the monitor and nothing else came with it. It didn't have any cables, but that was a problem to deal with later. At this point we have everything, and Joe was somewhere else buying Magic the Gathering cards. Boris, Joe, and I meet up, and we decide that I would take the case and parts on the train, and Boris would carry the monitor on his bike. We all start towards Boris's house, and at this point, my arms and back are dying. I struggled so hard to get the case into the train without dropping it because the bag was slippery. I get on the train eventually and go back to the station near Boris's house. I didn't want to carry all the parts to his house, and Boris said he would bike to the station I was at, but apparently Boris thought I was going to carry them to his house. So he went back to his house and left with the monitor and left it there. So I'm sitting there for 20-ish minutes and nothing. So I call him and he says, "Oh, I thought you were coming to my house." And I'm pissed. I'm like, "No, you freaking idiot." And then he he would come as fast as he could. Then I'm sitting there for another 20 minutes, call him again. I hit a car, he says. I'm like, Boris, you idiot. So he says, wait there while I get this conflict resolved. About 10 minutes later, he arrives and he's all sweaty and gross. And I'm like, why are you all sweaty and gross? And he's like, fast was an understatement. I biked here at the speed of light. And I'm kind of surprised by the speed. We started back towards Boris's house, and I found a way to hang the backpack on the handlebars to his bike and put the case on this flat metal grate thing that was conveniently on the back of his bike. The case was not secure, so Boris had to balance it the entire time. We were about 4/5 way to his house, and it just starts raining really hard. We all know computer parts and water don't mix, but luckily, we bought an umbrella because it was supposed to rain that day. Only part that was necessary to cover, though, was the case, because it was perforated, and we didn't want water to get inside it. Boris opens the umbrella, and we start walking a little more. And then I hear a crash of metal behind me. Turns out, Boris freaking dropped the case on solid asphalt. Luckily, nothing broke. So now Boris has the great idea of leaving me with the umbrella and case while he biked home with the parts. We didn't need to cover the parts because they were in a backpack in a box. It was really hard to carry the case and the umbrella because both of my arms were restrained by the case, so I had to stick the umbrella between my chest and the case. And at this point, I'm considering dropping the bag, but later on I found out that was a bad idea because one of the dust filters had popped off into the bag. So it stops raining and turns to a light drizzle. I get into Boris's house and we immediately get to work on assembling the thing. We got the motherboard screwed in, and then we had to go home because it was getting really late and I needed to be home for dinner. It actually turns out later on that Boris had scratched a Maybach, which is basically the more expensive version of Mercedes. Not only that, but it was the CEO of one of Japan's biggest construction company's car. So yeah, there's that. This concludes part 1. See you next time.